All right. Hello, everybody. So hello, Anne, Jenny, Joanne, Linda, Leesan, Nat, Sylvie. Oh, and Tina Marcoux is popping in. Hey, guys. All right. So we are on day 8. Day 8 of 21. So what, like a third of the way, I guess? Something like that. Yeah. So rainy, crappy day sometimes makes us feel a little rainy, crappy, right? Or sometimes it's like, oh, this is kind of nice. Maybe it's a time to cleanse, a time to explore, a time to chill. How do you guys feel about the rain? Do you like it? Yeah. Okay. Well, feel free. So we're gonna chat a little bit here, and then we're gonna talk about pitta in the body. But feel free to unmute just like last time, and ask any questions or anything that you'd like to say, just so that I feel like I'm not talking all the time, because I could easily talk your ear off about Ayurveda and life and all of that jazz. But what I'd love to start with is, how are you guys feeling so far? 8 days in, are there any pressing questions that you might have? Is there, what's going on? Anything you want to share? Anything you want to say? Invite you. Now is the time to unmute and let us know. Have a little chat, even if it's just a comment. It's all good. Looks like anybody unmuting. Oh.
Hi, Roxanne. It's Nat. I'm feeling actually good right now.
Cool.
So yeah, everything's working out. Following recipes on the website, not the meal plan, but recipes on the website, and yeah, I feel pretty good.
Okay, that's awesome. What other recipes have you been trying, Ben, from Joyful Belly?
So the grandma's chicken soup, that's one of my go-tos. The coconut curry chicken I got that at Candace's, and that was really good. And I've tried some more, but I don't remember.
Cool. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So has everyone seen all of the recipes that are in the Teachable app? Like, I mean, by now, it's day 8. We should know the Teachable app or the Teachable online. We should see all the recipes, because there are many from Joyful Belly, yes, because a lot of them are simple and they're really great seasonal. But I've also added other ones that are on there. So have you been checking them out? Have you been trying some? I know sometimes it's a little scary if something's very new, but how have you guys been feeling about those?
Hi, Roxanne, it's Lizanne.
Hey, Lee.
I bought Candace's beet and coconut soup, and then I came home and made my own because it's that easy. And I had never made beet soup before, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, cool.
My family didn't even want to go near it. Bruno and Alain didn't even want to try it or give it a chance, but that's okay.
Cool.
All about me right now.
Yeah. Screw you guys. It's all about me. That's cool. Cool. So it is that easy. How did it feel for you when you had it? How did it?
I haven't seen a difference yet, because I was pretty much like more often than not already eating a lot of veggies, but I really cut down on my meat, and I didn't miss it for a few days. I just had a little wee bit of chicken. Okay. And I don't miss it at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I could go without meat, but then that's a whole different ball game, because then you have to replace your proteins and stuff. But I'm just trying to give my gut a break.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
that's basically what I'm doing. I'm trying to cut down the meat.
Yeah. And not that, you know, we talked about this in one of the groups, and I'm not sure. I mean, it's nice having the 4 separate groups. By the way, there are 4 separate groups in case you guys didn't know. But the interesting part is that so different things come up in different groups. And so I'm answering in one group and then answering in another. And I'm like, oh, you know what? The other people would love this from this group. So it's great that we have this meeting, because then I can kind of bring those things up, right? So it's not that meat is bad, because meat is not bad at all. It's just, it is harder to digest. It's like we talked about in the first meeting, right? It's, you know, we don't have teeth in our stomach. And so that's why it can be tough. But it is really great for blood building, and we need good blood. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about pitta. Blood is, it feeds everything in our body. And so we need good blood. And so if we have more of a deficient type blood, where let's say we're lacking in vitamin B's, let's say we're lacking in iron, we're a bit anemic or something like that, then our blood is lacking. And so in order to build better blood, we need more anabolic type foods, and meats are anabolic, and dates are anabolic, raisins are anabolic. So they all help to build good blood. And so we can certainly have meat. I mean, you can easily eat a ton of meat and you can eat less meat. It's not about that per se, right? You might see some different programs where they're very focused on animal protein, and you have to get, you know, 200 grams of protein in a day kind of thing, right? And so and while it's all well and good, it can work for certain people, that's wonderful, and it can help you to lose weight, let's say, then that's a great thing. But what I take a look at, and what in all of my programs we take a look at, is digestion. Is, okay, how are you processing this food? How are you eliminating this food? How are you using this food for energy? How is it affecting your mood? How is it affecting your emotions and all of that, right? And so eating lots of meat every night for supper, you might realize you wake up the next morning and you feel very tired because it's heavy, it's building. Let's say you don't eat meat for a few days and you wake up the next morning and you feel energized because it's lighter and you haven't had those foods, right? So meat it's a super interesting topic. We can talk a lot about it. We can talk about, you know, that what happened to that animal as it died, right? If it was more of a stressed out death, let's say, then it's also said that the cortisol or the epinephrine or the serotonin or any of those sort of, serotonin can be in there, yes and no, but the elevated stress hormones, let's call them those, the elevated stress hormones can actually be in that meat that's said. And when we eat it, we consume and we have those elevated stress hormones as well. So you might notice that people who eat more meat actually might be a little bit more impatient or a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more irritated, right? And that's just interesting. Doesn't mean that everybody who eats a lot of meat is like that, but it's just something interesting to note is all. There we go. A little bit about meat. So thank you for sharing that though, Lisanne. That's awesome. It's really great that you're trying some different things. And let's do one little fun thing. Has anyone else tried beets yet? The beet soup, any of the, yeah? Okay, so we have a couple. We have a couple of tried beet soup. That's awesome. And so one thing, have you noticed the next day, 2 days later, 3 days later, have you noticed that your poop is red? Did anybody notice that? Yeah. Okay. So did you notice that the next morning that your poop was red? Yeah, a couple of you. Okay. Did you notice that 2 days later your poop was red? Or most of you were, okay. Yeah. Okay. And then I see, did somebody not notice red poop at all? Or maybe slightly. Yeah. Okay. So the beet test is a super fun test that tells us what our bowel transit time is. And what bowel transit time means is that from the time we consume food, according to Western, we're making this a lot larger, is that we should be eliminating the waste of that food 24 hours later, at least. If you have more of a very bitter diet where, you know, which is not around here, mostly over across the ocean, where they're eating a lot more bitter foods, then their bowel transit time might be as little as 6 hours. So they're eliminating the waste from that food in 6 hours. Everything is going to have waste. You're going to have waste from something. That's what the poop is, right? It's one facet of waste. And so that's a really great thing to notice, that if you, let's say for supper, you have beets, the next morning you have red poop, then you have like essentially about a 12-hour transit time, which is great, which is really good. That means that any type of issue, let's say, that's happening in the digestive system gets cleared out fast enough, which is awesome. The digestive system, the whole GI tract from mouth to anus, can regenerate in just 2 weeks. So let's say you're experiencing IBS, you're experiencing ulcerative colitis, you're experiencing Crohn's or anything like that. It's said that we can begin that healing process and be essentially asymptomatic after just 2 weeks of protocol or just 2 weeks of treatment. So that's pretty darn cool. So if you noticed that your poop was red at least 24 hours after, then that's awesome. Then that means that you are currently having a really good bowel transit time. Fun, eh? I like the beet test. I'm like, have some beets the night before, next morning have a poop. Yes, it's red. It's weird. Sorry. It's a bad conversation to talk about poop, right? No, it's not bad. It's not bad. Okay. So does anyone else have anything that they would like to share before we move into Pitta? Pitta in the body. Okay, cool. Alrighty, awesome. So you've heard these silly words, Pitta. You might have heard in one of our groups me saying ojas. You might have heard kapha. You might have heard vata. And I mean, there's a bunch of other fun words that I can say. And essentially all it is Sanskrit. So it is an ancient Tibetan language. And because essentially Ayurveda is over 5,000 years old, and that's where it basically began, right? Life began there, let's say. So those words, do you have to remember? No, you don't have to remember them. There is a Sanskrit word for basically everything. So I'm going to say a couple of fun ones for you just for fun. Okay. So our muscle tissue would be our mamsa dhatu. Tissues are dhatus. Our fat tissue would be our medas dhatu. Okay. Just for fun. From our colon all the way to our rectum, so till it's completely done, is called our Parishavah Shrotas. And what that means is essentially our waste carrying, our feces carrying system. So that's all it means. Pretty fun, right? They're just fun words to say. If you hear them and you're like, what? Don't even worry about it. It's all good. Because sometimes I do like to throw Sanskrit things in there because it's essentially fun for me, but it's also part of my Ayurvedic learning. So it's up to you guys. Whatever you hear is cool. So let's move into Pitta. Pitta is fire. Pitta is fire and it is water. Okay, a little bit of water. And the reason why it is water is because a huge Pitta site in the body is the blood. Okay, it's the red blood cells, the blood. So our blood, it goes everywhere in the body. It feeds every organ. It feeds every nook and cranny in the body. And so the blood is about energy, number one. So that's where the fire is. Okay, it's about nourishment and sort of feeding the body as well, right? So we can imagine that, let's say if we have a little bit of toxic blood going through the system, then you're going to essentially be a little bit toxic. So I'm going to go back to blood that is lacking. So if you are a little bit anemic, let's say, or you're missing a B vitamin, then where the blood is going in the body, it's not going to be fueling the body to the best of its ability. So then your organs start to lack a little bit, if that makes sense. Okay. So I don't want to get too deep into that, but that's what that means. On the other note, our blood can be kapha thick, too thick. So how can our blood be a little bit too thick? By eating too many blood building foods. So eating too much meat, for example, eating too much sweet, heavy foods, mucus forming and building foods. So that would be like your cheeses, which is basically a block of cheese, which is basically dry mucus. Yogurts and milks and things like that, breads and wheats and gooey stuff. So then our blood becomes thicker and it's prone to obstruction, to kind of getting like clotting, let's say, or not moving and flushing through the organs as it is intended to do. So something super cool is that when we have that more kapha thick blood, we might naturally do what's called vamana, which is vomit therapy. So have you ever noticed that maybe closer to Christmas time, people are more prone to like throwing up flus? Okay, or around Christmas time or shortly after Christmas time, you might notice that people are prone to the throwing up flu. Essentially, it's your body purging that excess thick, that excess heavy blood to dry out the blood a little bit and not make the blood dry, but let's say to lighten the load of the blood, if that makes sense. So vamana is a panchakarma. It is meaning it's one of a great cleanse. And so that's what our body's doing when our body is vomiting. That's one thing that it's doing. It's clearing out the system. It's cleaning out the excess toxins and the excess waste, okay? The excess heavy in that case. So the blood is extremely important. It is a massive pitta site in the body. So let's move into what are the qualities of pitta. So if you think about a fire, right, you might look at that fire and what types of qualities would you think that that fire has? Meaning, well, first off, the easy one is fire's hot, right? It's hot. If you touch the fire, what's going to happen? It's going to hurt. It's going to be sharp. Okay, so it's piercing, it's sharp, it's penetrating. It's like, oh my God, it just burnt me. That's penetrating, okay? Fire is also a little bit oily, okay? So oil and gas can create that fire. And when we get too much fire, then that fire dries out and it turns to ash. So pitta, an imbalanced pitta can be dry, can dry out, okay? So those are a few things of pitta. Another sort of quality of pitta is if you have a smelly fart, if you have sort of bad breath, if you have stinky armpits, any type of odor in the body is pitta related. It doesn't mean that it's only pitta, because there are a few cases where I can confuse the crap out of you, but I'm not going to. But basically, any type of smell in the body is due to a little bit excess pitta, too much heat. Okay, so we can think of it as heat, too much heat. Now, if you notice any skin rashes or any eczema, or you look at your tongue, so take a look at your tongue and you have red spots on your tongue, the face flushes easily, then any type of color in the body is also pitta. So you might see some people who flush very easily and get very red easily. I get red easy enough too. And so that's just that extra pitta. So it's something that I need to be mindful of, okay? So that's another thing in the body where we know that maybe we have too much pitta. So we need to essentially, it's like our flame is burning so high. And so what might we need to calm the flame more? So let's say we do have a fire, we have a bonfire, and it's getting out of hand. What would you do? What's something that you would do to it? What would you throw on the fire to make it not so nutso? Any suggestions?
Water.
Right, exactly. Yes. So although I mentioned pitta was a little bit of water, it's just a little bit in the blood. It's very much heat. So then we need water because water is more calming, water is more cooling. So we can have foods that are actually more watery, like watermelon. Watermelon is very watery, but it can have a drying effect, but we won't go there, but it's watery. Any types of fruits, right? Something that's really juicy. Gracie is like throwing watermelon over in my face on the other side over there. They're having some watermelon. Cucumbers, right? Those would be something that's a little bit more watery. So anything that you eat that makes your mouth watery, basically, okay? Limes are really great because they create salivation and then they make that water, but they also have a little bit of an earth element, because what else can you throw on a fire when it's getting out of hand? You can throw some water and throw some dirt on it. So you can put some earth on it as well, right? So we don't ever want our pitta to be totally dead. Because when our pitta is totally out, then that's when we're more in that kaphic state, meaning that's when we might have a slower metabolism. So you might think of, oh, why is my metabolism so slow? Because essentially your Agni, your pitta, Agni, energy, pitta, digestion, metabolism, is dimming, dying down, lacking, weak. Okay. So we always want to keep that up. And simple ways that we can do that are simple ways that you guys, or things that you guys are already doing. Being more mindful, number one, but creating that routine, creating a nice nourishing routine, eating the same times every day, trying to relieve the stress, because when a fire goes like crazy, it's like stressed out, right? So you're already doing some of those things. So whenever you feel yourself being irritated, then it's good to look to the wet stuff. Think about something wet, something that's going to be nourishing, that's going to feel good. Grains are really good too. Barley is a nice one. If you can have barley, it's a really great one as well, because it's more of a cooling grain. So those are some things that you can do when you feel like that pitta is burning up. So before we move a little more into it, does anybody have any questions? Any questions? No? Okay. I'm going to do a little screen share here. I'm going to see if, so we'll see, let's see how well this works for me right now. Okay. So there we go. Good. So can you guys see this here? So it says vibrational Ayurveda. Can you guys see that? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Perfect. So we can get really heavy here, and I can say that pitta is in the body, but pitta is also in the mind, and so is vata, and so is kapha, right? Okay, so these are some, when a pitta person, someone who is a little bit more pitta dominant, when they are balanced, then these are some of their mind qualities. So they're very focused, they're bold, they're confident, they have a good memory, they're joyful. Pitta people are very fun, usually, lots of fun, especially when they are balanced. When they're out of balance, they're a bitch, right? They're not very nice. Okay. So in the body, some different things when somebody is more naturally pitta, they have like oily skin. So they have good, strong skin, a nice body, a nice frame, finer hair, but that one I kind of think of, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so those are some of the qualities when someone is balanced and a nice natural pitta. And then if I move down, a pitta that is imbalanced. So in the mind, we have the tendency towards anger, towards hostility, wanting to control everything. I have an older brother who's got a little bit extra pitta, and I'm like, you're going to burn out your liver, dude. But you know, he still has to control everything. Not Greg. He's younger. But anyways, they're impatient, they can be judgmental, they can be jealous. And so any of those of the mind. So if you can think of some people right now, and you might even notice, hey, sometimes when I'm feeling hostile or I'm feeling like I need to control everything, you can just connect that. Oh, that's a little bit of my fire. And so how can I calm the fire? Which you guys know, you put water on it. So you put water on it through your food. You can literally put water on it. You can go to the washroom and like just put water on your face, and it probably feels better. It's probably not probably, it does. To me, feels better. So in the body, you'll notice that you have excess heat. So in menopause, when you have hot flashes, that has to do with excess pitta, but also vata, because vata moves things. But we're not going to go into vata today. That'll be another day. But so these are some of the things that you'll experience in your body. So you'll experience mostly stuff with inflammation, stuff with autoimmune diseases, rashes, eczema, psoriasis, all of that. Liver disorders, because liver is another huge seat in the body for pitta. Okay. So what can create aggravation for all of that heat? Well, all of this stuff here. So hot, spicy foods, right? All of this stuff is just throwing more fire on your fire, basically, right? So always getting into arguments, if you're that one that's just, I gotta always be right and I gotta create an argument and all of that. Competition. This is just more excessive stuff, right? Because having some arguments now and then is really not a bad thing. And competition is really not a bad thing, right? And being a little bit more assertive is not a bad thing, although that says aggressive. And, sex is it's obviously not a bad thing, but it's essentially overdoing these, right? So it's essentially always eating late at night, regular smoking, regular drinking, always in the sun, tanning and stuff like that, right? So those are just some things that can create that imbalance when you're doing it all the time over time. And the more you guys start to become more aware of yourself and what you're doing, then you'll start to notice the subtleties. You'll start to notice, okay, I'm a little bit irritated today, rather than being irritated for a whole week or feeling like, July was a crappy month because I was mad all month. You'll be able to balance yourself out better once you can kind of find these cues within you and notice what feels balancing and what feels out of balance. And that takes time. It's not like, by the end of this 21 days, you'll be good to go. It takes time. Okay. So does anyone have any questions about any of that? I'm just going to see if I can move that out of the way. Feel free to, jump in. There we go. Okay.
Roxanne, is it more common at this time of the year because we're outside more, it's warmer, or could this be a problem in the winter also, in the fall?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's talk a little bit, because that's a great question. Let's talk a little bit about the times of year. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing just for a second. So there are times of year when each element is in excess. And so the summer is hot. So what month, what season would that be? Hot. The only dosha that's hot, right? Pitta. It's the Pitta time of year. And so we're certainly moving into the Pitta time of year. If you are one to be more Pitta dominant, to be prone to that fire, then in the summer, it's going to be very important for you to stay balanced and to try not to let that fire overtake you. So yes, the summer can be tough. The summer can be very tough, especially if you're Pitta. But that doesn't mean that in the winter, you won't be prone to your Pitta imbalances. It really depends on how far in your life from the time you were a kid till now, how often, because like attracts like, right? I'm that hot, fiery person, let's say. So I like other people that are like outgoing and funny, and like even when I was younger, like I had a couple of boyfriends and they were boring and they didn't make me laugh and they didn't want to, and my husband, he makes me laugh every day because he's just that funny, like Pitta type guy, very kapha, but also like he has that Pitta nature, right? And so if someone didn't have that, then I didn't like it, because like attracts like. If you're always doing the things where like is attracting like, I'm going for spicy foods, I'm going for more alcohol, I'm going for more stimulants, I'm going to do more, then you have a long history of an imbalance. And so it's going to be a lot harder to bring yourself back into balance. Not that you can't do it, it's just going to be a lot harder. So in the winter, yes, you most certainly can be prone to those Pitta type imbalances if that's more you. And even if it's not more you, you can still be more prone to it. It's just, I try not to personally, when I think of Ayurveda and I think of myself, I don't think of myself as that Pitta person. I experience each day and notice what's off, because some days my mind is all over the place and I just need to ground. And that means that the Vata is throwing me everywhere, because wind is pusher, it's mover. And then some days I'm just feeling tired and I'm feeling a little bit lazy and I just want to chill and I don't want to move much. And that's the kapha, right? That's the more stable, the more grounded nature. So it's just all about rebalancing and just kind of learning. And again, it takes time. And that's why you're here, to learn some new stuff, right? It's something that for me, that it's almost like putting the puzzle pieces together. Because for me, it was always, okay, there's something's missing here. Something's missing in this diet. Something's missing in this exercise. Something's missing in a relationship. Something's missing somewhere. But for me, it's, oh, now I know what my nature is. And now I can feel my nature. And I think back as when I was a kid, I was definitely that little pitta kid, but there was a lot of Vata tendencies that I had. But that's about learning all of that, right? And so right now you're probably knowing, oh, okay, maybe I do get more irritated in the summer. And if you do, then eat some wet food and have some grounding food and try. How can you tell a person that's angry to calm down? Right? That's the last thing they want to hear. So just go and isolate yourself somewhere. Just like, go and sleep in a tent or something. I don't know. Go and find a way to ground yourself and calm yourself. Go in the middle of the bush. Yeah. Does that kind of answer some stuff for you? Suzanne? Yeah. Cool. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So anything else that anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
Question for you, Roxanne. Based on your example, like your pitta, and when your ideas are all over the place, so that's vata. So how would you bring yourself back into balance? Like, do you look at what vata is supposed to be eating to ground themselves? Is that how you would do that?
So that's a great question too. You can do that through diet. You can do it through lifestyle for sure. But one simple way, and it sounds kind of like woo-woo, but it's not. But one simple way that I bring myself back, that I ground myself, is through breath. So I just do different pranayama practices. So let's say I'm feeling a little bit all over the place. And I'm going to use this like Greg and I as an example, because he's very vata. And I have a tendency to go with him sometimes. But I got to say no, because I like to be more focused and I got to bring him back and I got to bring myself back. Is first of all, I recognize that. So I'm like, okay, too much right now. Stop. Right. So first of all, it's just recognizing where you're at. But then it's kind of taking a little bit of time, and sometimes it's just a few deep breaths. And so I like to focus on the exhale. So let's do a couple of those just for fun. How does that sound? So when you're feeling irritated and agitated maybe, or you're feeling like your mind is all over the place and you can't bring any focus into the mind. So what I invite you to do right now is just sit up nice and tall. So first off, we sit up nice and tall so that we can lengthen through our spine, so that we can allow the channels of the chakra, essentially, kind of the airways, to flow. So let's sit nice and tall and let's close our eyes. And so as you close your eyes, you can just kind of check in with the body if you want to, but the easiest way is just to come into breath. So what I invite you to do is take a deep breath in through your nose. And as you breathe out through your mouth. So let's breathe in through our nose again on your own time. Breathe out through the mouth. So let's do that 3 more times. But what I invite you to notice is when you breathe out, is your tongue pressed to the roof of your mouth? Because if it is, then that's another way that we're ungrounding ourselves. So I invite you to let your tongue fall to the base of your mouth. Remove it from the roof of the mouth. Let's try one more. And then whenever you are ready, you can open your eyes. right? So as you do stuff like that, you know, if you're newer to pranayama, which is just, it's another Sanskrit word, but it's essentially breath, breath practice, breath work. Then the first little bit, it might take you a lot longer to kind of feel that energy, feel that shift. But essentially, we're letting go, right? By breathing out, by focusing on that outward breath, we're letting go. But also by focusing on that outward breath, it allows us to kind of settle into some sort of peace and calmer state, essentially, right? So sometimes that's enough. It really depends on what's going on and kind of how far that Vata tornado might have taken you. So how did that feel for everybody? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Cool. Awesome. So if you're interested in different different breathing practices, different programs as well. I have some other programs. I know I've shared with you guys the letting go meditation that I've done, and that's a series of a finding fulfillment program. And essentially that's an introspective program, meaning to look into your emotions a little bit, to kind of dig in there and just notice what's in there, to kind of help to unpack some of that crap that you've been carrying all of your life that you just don't want anymore. And that's okay. There's also, so what I'll share with you guys is my YouTube channel, and there's a ton of different breathing practices on there too. So I have breathing practices for energy, to build your energy up, and then different breathing practices to kind of reduce anxiety and sort of ground as well. So you don't have to do anything special. You can just do that simple breath. Cool. Okay. So I am going to share screen again because I would like to share this picture, but hopefully it doesn't, well, can everyone see it very well? Like my cursor is here, sites of Pitta. Can you guys see that? Yeah? Okay. I know it's part of a bigger screen here where there's all kinds of other stuff on the side, but this is just a small amount of what I wanted to talk about. So we know that blood is a big Pitta site in the body. And then I'm going to move into, I know small intestine is here, but part of our digestion, essentially the part of digestion where it transforms food into energy, into everything, essentially into blood, into all of that, that is all Pitta. Pitta is all about transformation. If you look at a bushfire, you'll notice after that bushfire has gone through, it is completely transformed, right? Everything is dead. And that doesn't mean that Pitta is death. It just means that Pitta is change. Pitta is energy. Pitta is sort of movement and transformation and all of that. And so the biggest parts of our digestion is the lower end of the stomach. So just the lower end of the stomach is Pitta, because of the acids as well. So all the stomach acids, because they help to transform and to change. The small intestine is also another area in the body. And so when our food is in the stomach, it needs to go from an acidic state. Once it's moved into the small intestine, it needs to go to a slightly alkaline state. So that's a big change that Pitta has to do in the body. And if we're constantly bombarding the stomach with aggravating foods that are harder to digest, then the small intestine is not going to reduce in its pH. It's going to stay a little bit more acidic. And that's where we might have different small intestine type disorders, like ulcerative colitis is often in the small intestine. We might have some bacterial overgrowth here in this area. We can have some complications. So right at the base of the stomach here, that first part of the small intestine is called the duodenum, and that's where everything has to change. So that's a big part as well of Pitta. So the liver and the gallbladder and the spleen too. So if you look right here, liver, gallbladder, spleen is all about detoxifying the body, creating that change. There's a lot of metabolism that goes on here. So a lot of digestive change that needs to happen. The fat is broken down in the liver. The proteins are broken down in the liver as well. And the liver produces and the gallbladder releases bile. And bile is a sharp, hot, oily substance in the body. that is pitta as well. And the bile is very much needed to move into the small intestines and into the colon to help release feces. So it's very much needed in that bottom process of digestion, in especially the Parishavaha Shrotas, which is from the colon down. But that's not a pitta site. So we got the blood here too. Okay, subcutaneous fat. Also our sweat is pitta. So when we sweat, what does our sweat taste like? Anybody? What does your sweat taste like?
Salt.
Yeah, it tastes like salty because salt is fire. Salt is fire and water, actually. So salt is like pitta. Okay, so that's sweat. That's salty. That's how it tastes. Okay, so salt is a little pungent. So when you're releasing that salt from your body, if you're sweating, if you're one to sweat a lot, then you need to replenish with wet, with electrolytes and all of that too. But another big part, so I'm not going to talk about these little parts, but it's in there for sure. Another big part are the eyes. The eyes are a really big part of pitta. And why might the eyes be a big part of pitta is because pitta is about transformation. It's about interpretation. It's about change. And what we see, we have to process. So we see, we process this, we know that that's the house, and that's kind of how we interpret what we see, right? So if you're constantly perceiving and looking at, like, you might even notice that if your eyes get really dry, right, then that is the pitta in your eyes drying out a little bit. And a couple of ways that you can reduce pitta in the eyes. I notice this a lot in the summer. I notice that my eyes actually get itchy or they get very dry. They just get overworked. So they get overworked because I'm on the computer often as well through all of the other stuff that I do. But also just being more of that pitta nature, and it's just the eyes. So a couple of simple things that I do. Let's say you're on a computer a lot. Your eyes are always close and they're straining. So what you can do is you can look up and look as far as you possibly can, but with like a light gaze, and just try to look as far as you can. And what that does is that helps to, it's said to just help the strain on the eyes and give yourself that different vision, that different perspective, and it kind of creates a little bit of cooling in the eyes. Another thing that I love to do is I take the palms of my hands and I just go like that, and I place them over top of my eyes, and it feels wonderful and it feels great. Another thing that I like to do is cucumbers on the eyes. So I think we talked about that a little bit, right? Just a cucumber right on the eye, because cucumbers are very cooling. So they help to reduce the pitta in the eyes. And then I do a ghee bath. So did I tell you guys about this? I don't think I did. Okay. So ghee that you eat, which is clarified butter, which is essentially cow fat. Okay. That is a very great for blood building. It's a wonderful blood building oil. It is said to be a lot easier. It is said to be easy to digest. It is said to be, it's heavier though, a little bit more unctuous because it builds good blood. It builds ojas, and ojas essentially is our vital energy. We can think of it that way. But it's also cooling. So it's slightly cooling in the body. So what I would do is I lay on my back and I take just a little tiny bit of ghee. Make sure you do not have any eye makeup on, by the way, if you plan to do this. It seems freaky, but it feels wonderful. So I just put a little dab of ghee, like right in the side right there. And I have my eyes closed and I let the ghee melt from the warmth of my eyes, and the ghee soaks into your eyes. It's a ghee eye bath. Yeah. And it seems freaky, definitely. The first time I did it, beforehand, I was like, oh my God, this is freaky. I'm putting something in my eyeballs. But then as soon as I was done, I was like, oh my God. It was like I had an eyegasm. It was so great. It was wonderful. And so now I do that usually a couple times throughout the summer when I feel that heat building a little bit too much. Don't feel like you have to. If you don't want to do it, it's all good. It's just another option. Simple thing is, that's easy peasy. Cucumbers on the eyeballs is easy peasy too. So So that is a couple of things that you can do for sort of an overheated pitta. We could literally go on about pitta much, much longer, but I think we probably best if we just kept it to where we're at. But if anybody has any questions though about anything, so we mentioned a couple of things to calm pitta, right? Pitta time of year. So everything that's in your food is great for pitta. Antioxidants are great because that oxidative stress, meaning oxidative stress is essentially when we have extra oxygen in our body and we need to release the excess, which can happen from inflammation from summer. So berries are really great. Anything very dark. So any really dark food is a really great antioxidant. We look to foods also with beta carotene, which helps to support the liver. So we need a lot of liver support because the liver is a very, very hot site in the body. So beets are great. Again, anything with color can help. And then if we look to some herbs that are cooling for pitta, we have cilantro, dill, cardamom can be great. It's not quite as heating. And then there's another one that is a more Ayurvedic herb. I can give you a couple actually. So one of them is called amalaki. And amalaki is, if you're coming to the gas and bloating remedies class this Wednesday, amalaki is actually part of one of the formulas that I've created to help reduce inflammatory gas and bloating. And it's a fruit. It's just a fruit that comes over from India and you can't really kind of OD on it. I tend to take amalaki almost every night because I tend towards more pitta inflammation and pitta inflammation in my colon. So I don't want that to happen. So I do amalaki. And a formula with amalaki is called Triphala. And Triphala has amalaki. It has harataki, which is more of a vata type fruit. It's all fruit. It's just 3 separate fruits. That's it. And then the last one is bibataki. So Triphala is a very soothing and mild laxative. So when we think of laxative, we might think of pungent laxative that's going to make you have like watery poops. Well, we don't want that. We don't want that in a stressed out system. So there are many food or herbs and foods that have more of that gooey or more of that slimy laxative effect. And Triphala is one of them. Triphala is something that you can also take every night. So, which will also be a part of the gas and bloating remedies as well. Where can you get Triphala and where can you get amalaki if you decide that you want to try some? Well, you can go on Amazon. Amazon has some. But let me show you if you would like to see. I will open up something for you and I'll show you. So this is a place that, let's see here. If I go there. There we go. So this is an Ayurvedic site where I like to get a lot of my herbs. But the herbs that I get and like different oils that I use as well, but the herbs that I get are in bulk. So you get a lot. And if you don't want a lot, then that's okay. Just let me know because I buy them in bulk. So if you want some, I can easily just give you some, you could try it. Okay. So shop herbs. So here we go. You can get Shwanti on Amazon. So if you decide to go with Amazon, then you can certainly do that. But this would be it, amala powder. So amalaki right here. And I think it's actually close to the same thing on Amazon. But the amala powder is amalaki. And that one is a pitta reducing, a inflammation reducing, but also very supportive. Even though it reduces, sometimes when we think reducing, we think depleting, but it's also supporting. So it helps to support the liver and support the gallbladder and the small intestine and the stomach and all of that as well. So that would be your amalaki. And then Triphala is usually, there's so many. Which are fun. They have ashwagandha here. I know we talked a little bit about ashwagandha last time too. Triphala. So there we go. So Triphala. So Triphala, what I should say is if you decide to do that, or if you want, just you can grab some for me. I'm not saying go out and get this, go out and do this. It is all completely up to you. But if you get it in a powder form, versus this would be like just a capsule. So all it is it's just a compressed capsule, and you can just take 2 at night if you want to try it. But if you get it as a powder along with the amalaki, what I'm gonna tell you is it's not gonna taste good. Okay, so amalaki and Triphala, both of them have almost all 6 tastes except salty. So they are bitter, astringent, sour, pungent, and a little bit sweet. So they have all of those, but likely the one that you're going to taste is the one that you don't get very much of. So it's going to taste gross. So, and that's really neat because I like to do them in powder form because I like to taste, and I like the intuition into noticing what taste I might be lacking a little bit, because sometimes they taste very bitter while other times they're extremely sour. And then I've even had a couple of times where they actually tasted sweet when I was depriving myself of sweet stuff. So it's just a fun experiment, really. But majority of the time it's astringent or bitter most of the time. Yeah, for me. But it's different for everybody. So those are a few things that you can try. But again, if you want, let me know. I can give you a little bit. And really all you need, if you decide to do that, to try that, is really all you need is just a half a teaspoon in some warm water, mix it all up, and then just swig it back in like a little ounce thingy. Yeah, so those are some things that can support your digestive system and don't have any contradictions with any type of pharmaceuticals, because all of that's important as well. Cool. There we go. So, how's everybody feeling now? Are you good? My face is hot. Oh, pizza. Anybody have any questions? Are you excited for the next, 7 days? You can do it in 7-day chunks. Yeah, I know you have more than that left, but are you excited? Are you good?
I'm good. I am actually excited. I find that this past week, I
Yeah.
have sort of gotten to know myself a little bit better. Being a wife, being a mom, working, I really put myself on the back burner for a long time until I burnt out. And this week, I've worked on what I want to do, what I want to eat, what I. And I'm slowly figuring out what it is I need. So this coming week, I'm looking forward to going in because I'm feeling more confident about this Ayurveda. The only thing I need to change is I do like a heavy meal, like at supper, I eat more. So I'm going to try and switch it with my lunch and then have my soup for dinner. I just find it's a bit harder at work.
Yes.
But that's going to be something I try this week.
That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, it is. It's a tough switch, Jen. So just like do the best you can more often. That's all,
Yeah.
Yeah. We're like a Western society where it's like supper's social, supper's huge, right? So it's tough. I mean, and even if you have lighter suppers all throughout the week, Monday through Friday, and then you do, a bigger, more social supper on Saturday and Sunday, or even Friday, Saturday, all good. It's all
Yeah.
good. Yeah, it's good.
Also, I have a question. So
Yeah.
when I go for a long walk, my hands get like swollen.
Mm-hmm.
So is there something I can do? Like I walk and then after a while I put my hands up in the air to try and get the blood flow going.
Yep.
But is there something like that could help with that?
Yeah. So that has to do with it can either have to do with high pitta, with inflammation, can also have to do with a little bit of manda agni, which is maybe a bit of sluggish agni, a little bit meaning thicker blood, let's say, or circulation. So the joints are actually how do I say it? Do I say this right? Let's say gas gets trapped in the joints. Okay, so
Okay.
think of like a hose that's all kind of twirled up, right? Because we have all these little joints, gas can get caught and stuck up in these joints. And so it creates that inflammation, it creates that bloating, that trapped gas. So to help with that would be, like you said, when you were walking, you just put your hands in the air, right? But instead, when you walk, instead of having your arms kind of hang with your arms low at your sides, right? Like you're walking and your arms are kind of down here. What you can do is kind of pull your hands up here and move a little bit like that. Okay.
Okay.
So yes, you're going to look like, an 80s power walker, but that can help. Do you find that your feet are a little bit swollen by the end of your walk as well? Like-
No, I don't find my feet are that. No,
Okay. Okay.
no.
Okay, that's okay. I was just curious as well. So doing different like joint movements and joint kind of manipulations and stuff like that all throughout your day. So if you spend a lot of time on your computer, just make sure that you kind of do some like different joint actions and joint movements around like that, any type of that type of stuff. But flushing the system is really great. So drinking that CCFT, which would be cumin, coriander, and fennel seeds with warm water, because
Okay.
it is a flusher. It is a diuretic, but it's also a replenisher. So it's going to help to move, because when we have that inflammation there, things aren't moving. So it's going to help to move and flush. Favoring more bitter foods. Bitter helps to contract and help to move things along. So it has to do with a little bit of blocked, like vata isn't kind of moving and flowing as well. So those types of things can certainly help with all of that. But even just if it's mostly while you're walking, just kind of have the arms up and do that too. That can help every now and then. But likely if it's happening when it's walking, there's that little bit of kind of oxidative stress going on everywhere. So more pitta type foods might help. Easier to digest foods. If you had mentioned that you always like to have bigger, heavier suppers, you're having those suppers in the kapha time of day, which is the slower time of day when we're meant to be resting and digesting. So it's harder on the digestive system. So it creates more opportunity for trapped gas. So having some lighter stuff later at night can also help with that. The humidity in the air, though, too, could also aggravate that if you're more prone to, on a hot day, if you just feel more swollen and feel more puffy. But essentially that puffiness is a pitta kapha thing. So reducing. Did some of those
Yeah, it makes sense.
sound okay? Okay. Yeah.
Roxanne, could you repeat the recipe for
Yeah.
the warm water, the three
Yeah.
spices?
Yeah. So that is, you can get it over at Alice's Place, which is the Nipissing Food in Bins. And it is cumin seeds, coriander seeds, and fennel seeds. And that is a basic Ayurvedic balancing tea that essentially balances all doshas as well. And so I usually just put just grab a little bit of seeds, if you like to measure, you could do quarter of a teaspoon of each or something like that, and put them in like a little tea, that little tea canister thing, and then just put them in your water, put them in with your water. Those are great too. Cool. And also reducing the, that just the heavier foods and stuff that you're eating, and trying to go a little lighter can help. Yoga is good too, moving the joints all over. Cool. So before
One thing at a time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just try not to like, then you're like, oh my God, I have so much stuff to do, right? Like try not to try not to let yourself get overwhelmed. You just like one thing at a time. Perfect. Lighter suppers, heavier lunches, one thing at a
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Whatever the one thing is for you, all good. All good. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. As always, continue to, post in the Teachable. I haven't been in there in a couple of days. My apologies. I've been busy, but I will go in for sure. But I know there wasn't as many comments in there, and that's okay. I've been commenting a lot in all of your different Facebook groups. So if you want to comment in there, feel free to do that because I think it might be a place that more people see stuff anyways. But either way, just we're still gonna continue to keep in touch and support you and throw out videos. And any questions at any time, let us know, and we'll continue to tackle it together. There. Good.
Perfect.
Well,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Have an awesome
Thank you.
sleep, everybody, and we will see you
Thank you.
later. You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.